Good morning, folks. I've been using Starlink for a couple of weeks now, and I thought I'd give you my opinion on some of the good and some of the bad on the way that it works. So far, it's been mostly good, but there are a couple of little flaws that I thought I'd share with you and what I did to alleviate some of those problems. So this is the antenna that receives the satellite signals. And I've got it mounted in about the only clear spot that I've got out here. I've got it strapped to a pole, and I use tie straps to fasten that pole to an old stump. And it's very rigid, it's not moving. But part of my issue is, you can see that tree line. And it does obstruct some of the signal, and I may have to do something about that in the future, but for now I'm very satisfied with the way that it works. So right now the cable, I've just laid it across the ground, and I'm gonna have to get some protective covering over top of that in case somebody runs it over with a snowmobile or similar device, which would probably be me. So that's going to be on the agenda sometime in the next few days. Now, I was using this system here, which is a wireless, and this dish is pointed at an antenna. Sorry, not an antenna, but a tower, and it just barely see it off the end of that point over there across a couple kilometers away over there. And the system worked very good. It was very reliable. Other than when we had power outages, it was very consistent signal. But the issue was, it was just not very fast, and unless I wanted to pay substantially more to get more download and more upload, Starlink was actually cheaper. So that was one of the driving factors that led me to go to Starlink. Right, Maisie? What are we going to do today? Yeah, I know you want to play. We'll get to that later. Right now I'm busy. We do have dock spiders here. That's a fairly small one. They're pretty much harmless. They're more afraid of you than anything, but they're kind of nasty to have around. Anyway, this is the other end of the cable, and I fed it under the cottage, and it goes underneath over across to this side where I set up the Starlink router, and it's inside there. We'll get to that in a second. Now, the issue with that router is it's just not very strong, and I found that the signal wasn't near as good as my original router. So what do you do to fix that? Well, I come up with a solution, and it's working quite well, actually. Disappointments that I had with Starlink when it arrived was this router, and I thought that it was a larger router, and I heard that the larger routers were actually quite good. So when opening the box and finding this, I was immediately disappointed in what I seen. Now, to alleviate that issue, I had to, well, this is the cable that runs up from the dish, or from the antenna, and it feeds into the back of this router. But there is another port in behind, so I had to modify this cable because it didn't have an end on it that I needed, so I had to solder up the wires and get that fixed up. So I got to tape that up and make it look a little bit more presentable, and I got to fasten these wires down so that they're neater looking. So this cable I ran down and under the floor, and back over to where my original router was placed. And that's right here. Now this is a TP-Link router, and it's been a very good one. It sends out a relatively decent signal. Well, this is the cable that comes from the other router, and I fed it into here. This is the cable from the other router. Fed it into the input on this router, and this one feeds my desktop computer. So I'm wired direct. It doesn't go through wireless. Anyhow, there are some settings that you have to do to this router. So you have to access it through your desktop or laptop or whatever. And you get into the controls of this and you set it to a pass-through. So rather than using my old system to feed this router, I'm using the signal from the Starlink from the other router to go to this. So it puts out a 2G signal and a 5G signal, same as the other one. And I've got that set up so that I'm using the signal almost exclusively from this router, because it'll broadcast to pretty much anywhere where I want it to in the area of the cottage. So as an example, I'm using my old iPhone 8 to receive the signals from the routers. And the SL Cottage 5G is what it's currently hooked up to. And as you can see, I've only got 2 bars out of the 3, and it's only maybe 20 feet away from the Starlink router. And it's rather disappointing. Now, it's also got a 2G network, and it's the same 2 bars out of the 3. Now, the difference between 2G and 5G is the speeds that it's capable of carrying. 2G is a lower frequency range, and it is capable of passing through objects better than the higher frequencies like the 5G. But the 5G is faster if you're able to get the signal properly. Now, the old TP-Link router is Island 4 on 2G and Island 4 on 5G, and it's only a few feet away. And of course, it's a much stronger signal. But the TP-Link router, my original router, is capable of transmitting much better than what the Starlink can do. So anyway, I can switch easily. So if I'm going to be out in the yard and working, what I'll do is I'll go to the Island 4 2G, and I can pretty much get a signal anywhere in the immediate area around the cottage without any difficulty. It's a little bit slower, but I can receive, Facebook and all that kind of stuff easily. Now, where the 5G Island 4 really shines is on when I'm watching television or on my desktop, my laptop computer. It works much better. So let's run a speed test and see where we're at. So 100 meg download, which is what Starlink has promised. Right now it's showing a disappointing 15, but most of the time it's much higher. Not sure whether that's attributed to clouds or just what. Let's try it again. Now that's on the 5G on the TP-Link router. Oh, there we go. The Starlink isn't always consistent. It does go up and down depending on where the satellites are positioned above you. And that's one of the beefs I have, is sometimes the signal isn't quite as strong as what it should be. But there again, that could be attributed to my tree line that it does partially obstruct the signal. So what am I going to do? I'm thinking of possibly putting it on a longer pole and getting the dish up just a little bit higher so it's not so restricted by the tree line. So for an example on the range of the two different routers, now it's this old iPhone, it's set on the TP-Link router on the 5G, and I'm getting 3 bars full signal, and on the 2G on the same router I'm getting full bars. But on the Starlink router down here, I'm only getting 2 bars. And it's not even picking up the Starlink router on the 5G. So that's a perfect example of the poor broadcasting capabilities of that Starlink router. Very disappointing. So is Starlink for everybody? No, it's not. If you have 5 available to you, I would probably suggest that you stick with that. It's not perfect, but it is better than what I had. And I'll stick with it. And I'm sure that I'll find improvements to come in the near future too. There are definitely settings that I can change to make it better. And as I discover those, I'll share them with you. Is it time to play now, Maisie? Hey, want to go chase squirrels? Let's go. Where is it?